Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Victoria, welcome to Consulting Leaders. Happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm delighted to be here.
Let's jump straight into it. What got you into advising leaders on vision, values, and resilience, Victoria?
Well, first, I should say it's evolved over many, many years. So I started out my early career working in PR, actually. And one of the iconic products that I worked with for me in my career was a product called Greene for women. It's a women's hair loss product. And I was so struck by how this product could help women that were suffering from hair loss, suffering from alopecia. And it was the first, I launched it in the UK market. And I was just really taken with how important this product was for women that were suffering from hair loss and the positive impact that this product had created for them. I then went off to go and work with BT, one of the UK's biggest network, telecoms organisations, and I worked with them on their then CSR programme, so corporate and social responsibility. And I was working with them to give pretty much, often giving oversized checks to local community initiatives, and again was really taken with the profound impact that business could have on people and places if they chose to do so. So I then spent the next few years thinking, right, how can I find other businesses, other leaders that believe in and are passionate about the things that I care about too? So how can we make a positive impact on the world around us? How can we build strong relationships with people who really value their ability to make that positive change and that impact? So that's my kind of career journey. And then just from a personal level, I grew up in a household where being an entrepreneur was really encouraged. So my dad ran his own property consultancy. He then went on and pursued anything that he was interested in and pursued it with such gusto. So everything from he owned, when I was very small, he owned a greyhound training business and raced greyhounds around dog tracks around the UK. And he then went on to go and buy and run a football club. So that kind of pursuit of those, interests with such intensity was really normalized for me as a child. So it was obviously a move that I needed to make sure was the right one when I moved into consulting, but I have never looked back and I'm really, really pleased I did
it. I just learned a new word. Such gusto. Gusto?
Yeah.
I like it.
Good.
So things have evolved. I love the background. I very much know about alopecia. And I know how much more terrible it is for women to go through than men, although I did go through my little hair transplant. So what's the problem that you solve now, Victoria? What is it that you're helping people achieve?
So right now, I feel that we live in this era of perma-crisis. So every day there's another challenge for business leaders to contend with. That might be supply chain issues. It might be labour shortages. It might be, certainly in the UK and the EU, we have ever-changing regulations, global events like the pandemic, changing climates. And I really work with leaders to help them to explore some of those challenges, but to find opportunity in them. And the way that I do that is to help leaders get really, really clear on the difference that they're trying to make. And importantly, why they're trying to make it and who they're trying to make it for. So I'm, as you've probably gathered, I'm particularly interested in the planet and the environment and the ecosystems that we depend on as human beings. And many, many decades ago, we didn't really have much of an idea of the damage that we were doing to our planet and to all the ecosystems that we depend on. And now I think actually we're in a place where we have so much more knowledge. We know more now than any generation has ever known. But there are many leaders out there who are, I think, willfully blind to the worsening environmental crisis. And I know that this matters to people, people, not least because they're feeling the effects of it, of, soaring temperatures leading to wildfires or drought, increasing rainfall leading to flooding, and greater intensity of other environmental, events like hurricanes and so on. And then, of course, biodiversity loss and loss of habitats. But there's just this really challenging issue that people don't really know what to do about it. I'm just me, and I'm just working in this business, and how can I possibly make any kind of impact? And that is where I think I bring real opportunity to leaders, because I help them to not just recognize what's going on, but help them to understand what's the right thing for them to do, what's the path that they can cut through, that they can believe in, and that they can get behind, and that their people can stand behind as well. So that's a real focus for me now, is how to help leaders build those organizations that essentially are resilient. Because if we don't have businesses that are resilient, that can understand what's coming down the track and how they need to, anticipate and react and pivot and respond, then those businesses just won't survive in future. And my belief is that for a resilient business, a business that can truly say is resilient, is not just focused on a continuity. How do we keep the lights on? Actually, they're focused on how do they have a very real, firm grasp on reality. What is the situation that I found myself in? They know their purpose. They really deeply understand why they're here and what they're as I say, what they want to get behind. And then they have this ability to pivot and adapt and respond, so that, when a challenge presents itself, they've got some flexibility and they know how to move. Because fundamentally, sustainability, business resilience is a driver of long-term value. And as you probably guessed, this all matters to me, because it's really critical to me that I play my part in creating a planet that's better for my kids and better for the next generation. And I also, within that, believe that everybody that goes to work, everybody that works for somebody or for themselves, should have the chance to love their job, should have the chance to love what they do. And I think that when people know that they're contributing to something bigger, whatever form or shape that takes, then they've got some passion and some energy and some motivation, and then there's something driving people forward. And that only comes really when leadership can effectively articulate what that purpose is, what that bigger thing is, and why it's important. So that's what I help leadership to do, is to articulate that and to help that flow down throughout organizations.
I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball at you, Victoria, already that early in the interview. So I like it. I feel you're very mission driven, which in my opinion is key when you're consultants. Like solo practitioners, it's just us. So if we're not mission driven, where are we even going? But even consulting firms, like you need to stand for something, right? Talk to me like I'm the CEO of the company you're trying to work with, though. Like, yeah, sure. Like values, super important, vision, resilience. I'd love my team to have that. And that's priority number 16 on my list of priorities. What's in it? And I'm not saying this to be harsh, obviously, but like, what's the benefit of, because I'm sure there is, of nailing that down properly, of having a clear vision, of being value driven? And as we grow our own company, I very much know that culture and your values are actually going to be key into the level of excellency and quality that you deliver. Resilience as well. So how does that help me, impact the bottom line?
Well, I think exactly as you said, it is a driver of long-term value. And I think when the organizations that start to look at sustainability or at culture as a driver of long-term value, the more benefit that they will get from it. Because you're right, every CEO, every leader I talk to is faced with myriad competing priorities. And it's really, really difficult to know how to balance all of those. But the leaders that I work with truly believe that this is a driver of long-term value, and they understand that. And of course, that won't be for everybody. There'll be some people that want to focus on the numbers and, sales metrics, for instance. But my experience tells me that when you only focus on something like the numbers and the commercial, gain, then that's all you focus on. So I was really interested to read the biography of Sathnam from Microsoft, the CEO there. And he talked about, in the very difficult days of Microsoft, when they focused only on the numbers, the business became very, very siloed, and none of the departments actually worked together. They didn't collaborate. And this was at a time when Apple was, coming to the fore, Microsoft was being challenged. And there was an inability for, even in Microsoft, for this organization to work together, let alone be able to collaborate, across different organizations with different competitors. And you see why that's so important for them to be able to have that, connectivity and compatibility and ability to collaborate with others as a value. Because if they don't have that, I wouldn't be able to sit here on my Apple laptop connected through Microsoft Teams, playing a video through YouTube. You just wouldn't be able to have that level of ability to connect all of those organizations. So that's why, something like a value is not just a word on a wall. It absolutely determines how you go about running your organization, so that when, these decisions come up, these issues come up with how, for it, like that example I've just given, that you're prepared and ready and able to respond to it.
I like that. Who do you typically work with? Do you have a specific niche, industry, company size? Who do you typically work with?
It's not. I don't have a particular. It's more about the time of life, I guess, that my clients are in. So they're usually at some kind of crossroads. So they might have, for instance, tentatively looked at developing a vision before, for instance, but they might have really struggled to articulate it. And sometimes the reason that happens is, and where it's useful for me as an external person to come in, is that when you're on the inside, it's really hard to see the wood for the trees. When you're on the inside, it's really difficult to be impartial, because you have your personality, you have your hierarchy, you have your biases. And the advantage of having an external person to come in is that there's no filter, there's no bias. I have no agenda. So I can go in and talk to anybody in the organization. And this is what I did when I was working in PR. This is where I understood the value of having relationships and connections with people at all different levels of the organization. And they all have something really interesting and valuable to say. But it's really hard to hear that if you're the CEO. Not all the time, but this is a lot of clients that come to me. This is I know that this is what the issue is, that they've tried to articulate something, and for some reason it's just not quite landed, and they haven't quite been able to overcome some of those hurdles. So those are the times when people come to me, is that they've tried to do some of this work before themselves. It's not quite landed. And they want some help to get it over the line, because unless you've got that buy-in from the C-suite all the way down to the shop floor, the factory floor, it won't ever be lived. So you think about, the work that I do around values, for instance. Your values are the words and behaviors that shape your culture. And you have a culture in your organization, whether you like it or not. If you're a solopreneur, me and lots of other of your guests, it will just be their own personal values, all the way through to a multi-million-pound organization will have a set of values, whether they articulate them or not. They will have a culture that exists. And the challenge is, how do you move from the place that you're at now, or does the culture that you have now help you to deliver on the purpose or your vision that you've set yourself? Because again, going back to the Microsoft example, if we're just focused on ignoring what everybody else is doing, focus on ourselves with our head down, focusing on the numbers, we're never going to be able to collaborate. That's a real problem when you need to have an organization that can work, with competitors. So being able to, to articulate cultures, to understand the behaviors that are needed to help move towards a vision, is again something that has to be bought into from the entire organization. It can't just be a top-down broadcast piece of work. It has to be embraced and lived and owned by everybody. Because there's also, I was reading some really fascinating research a couple of days ago, talking about the purpose gap. So this is a gap that has been identified where 2/3 of executives, around 64%, they think that their purpose is fully aligned to the actions that they take every day as leaders. Whereas when you go and ask the same question to employees, only a quarter of them, 24%, agree. That is a huge gap where executives think their purpose is fully aligned to their actions, where only a quarter of employees agree. So my work is around how do you help to close that gap, to bridge that gap, so that the strong belief that execs have that they're doing the right thing to help deliver on their vision or their purpose is actually realized by employees as well, and they can get behind that too.
How do you market that, Victoria? Because so I understand how this is going to be industry agnostic, right? Mm-hmm. And that at the end of the day, it's going to be about where the leader is at in their journey. Mm-hmm. But when you think about needing a back surgery, right? There is this famous example of you have a choice between two doctors, surgeons. One has done 10,000 surgeries. He's done heart, hips, guts, back, brain, whatever. Star player. And the other option is same profile. They've just done 10,000 back surgeries. Probably going to go to the person who's been doing 10,000 surgeries. So I understand, and that does make sense, why there would be not a specific niche, industry, company size whatsoever. But then how do you market? How do you brand? How do you get potential clients to knock on the door and to be like, yeah, we actually need help with resilience, or, aligning and defining maybe even our values, or being more clear on our vision and mission? How do you market that?
It's a really good question. So I think firstly, I was given some really good advice years ago, which was, if you had to be known for one word, what would it be? When you think about Google, you think about search. You think about Starbucks, you think about coffee. And all of these brands that are, mega multinational brands have nailed this bit of branding. And this is a journey for me, because obviously I started in PR and now I am have moved over the last 20 years to consultancy and do much more strategic work. So I hope that my word is resilience or sustainability. And that when clients come to me, they know full well that is what I'm here for. And I might help organizations with where we want to articulate our vision, and our vision is focused on commerciality, for instance, but they know that I'm going to come at this with that's fine. And what else can you do? How else can you? So I'm known as well for challenging, and how do I, really help to get to the nub of a challenge or an issue. And then in terms of, so that's in terms of the sort of branding piece and how I choose to market myself. And then in terms of how I build some of those relationships, which I think is what you're trying to get at, for me, it's down to networking. And when I talk about networking, I don't mean how I've nailed my sales pitch and I can go into a room full of people and tell them all about the services I offer, because that is just the bad bit of networking for me. Networking for me is I go out and meet people because I'm really interested in people. I want to learn about them. I want to learn about what, how they work, what they believe in, what they do. And I'm really focused on building relationships. And relationships are fundamentally built on trust. So I go out and network because I want to build bonds with people. So I treat contacts as friends, and they're people that I find interesting and inspiring, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings and we're here for such a short amount of time, and we all have interests and passions and hopes and fears. So I just try as much as I can to get curious, and I ask questions and I listen. And that it's a strategy that works for me. And I really like building relationships with people over a long period of time. So, that, and then that's how a lot of my work comes through, from word of mouth, because people take me with them when they move roles. I get recommended into different organizations because people know what I stand for and what I do. So it works for me, but everybody has a different way of working.
No, 100%. And so the reason of that question is we mainly get listened to by B2B coaching and consulting firm owners. And it's always interesting to see how your peers are thinking about the main constraints of growing a business, right? How do you find more clients? How do you sell to those clients? How do you retain them longer or provide more value so that you can make them pay more? And how do you decrease risk, whatever that is, reputation, cash flow, whatsoever. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, from our experience and with this podcast as well, consultant needs 4 things, right? They need authority, they need trust, they need visibility in front of the right people, though so many people fall into the vanity metrics trap, which is a dangerous trap. And then the way to trigger conversations. Yeah. Whatever you're using, whatever you're doing, and anything can work. I genuinely believe that. As long as you're getting those 4, you're growing your business, which is the goal for many people. So yeah, no, that does make a lot of sense. Yeah. How do you... So you build those relationships, Victoria, but then how do you move to a conversation, a sales conversation, a SOW, a letter of engagement? Like, how do you move the needle forward? I'm not sure that's an English expression, but you get me. To actually move towards an engagement and be like, yeah, let's rock and roll.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and some of it's just luck. And or a recommendation in, or some
interesting strategy.
It's not a very good long-term strategy, but no, honestly, it's about, as I said earlier, it's about asking questions and listening and asking the right questions to reveal the right insights, so that people can tell you about what they're struggling with, and you all your job is to help them to make the connections, join the dots for where you fit in to help solve their challenge. And that once you have that conversation, you get that scope of work, then it's about I prefer, for instance, to work in partnership, so I don't tend to pitch for work, because I feel that I spent many years pitching, working agency side, and it just, to me, always felt like a really transactional relationship. And I always felt a little bit that I was on the back foot. I wasn't quite valued in the way that I felt that a consultant should be valued. So I prefer more to come at all of my client relationships as a partner. So I work together with my clients. So to help, even, for instance, to create the brief before we even create the scope of work. So that means I have to stay really, really flexible. I have to be really, really adaptable. And I'm honest about, this I have heaps of experience in, but this thing that you think that I can do, I have less experience in, but I'm really happy to give it a go, and we'll work together on how to make that happen. And I think people really like and trust and buy into that honesty and authenticity as well. So I won't ever kind of, overstate what it is that I can achieve for people. And I'm also really careful about some of the language that I use with clients. So, for instance, particularly the words, I've already used loads of it today: sustainability, CSR, resilience. These could all be seen as really jargon-focused words. And I'm really mindful that actually people just want plain language. Not everybody is as deep into the sustainability world as I am. And I am really conscious of how do I use language that resonates with my client, because even things like, a strategic narrative to a proposition to a strategy to all of these mean different things to different people. So it's about making people, using language within the scope that you create that people are comfortable with and that they're familiar with. And this is just about trying to make it as easy as for people to say yes to. So they're really clear on what they're buying. They're really clear on what I will do to solve a problem for them, how it will be delivered, when it will be delivered, all of that kind of, people are they don't have time for overly labored, really long, drawn out scopes of work. They just have a problem that they just need to solve. So if you can demonstrate to them that this is it, they trust you to get it solved and you'll get it done on time, in budget, in a way that is inclusive, for instance, whatever works with the culture that you're working in, then that's the easiest way to get to a yes.
Fair enough. No, I mean, building relationships, making it simpler. At the end of the day, I think if you're able to make it as frictionless as possible,
exactly.
Keep on building the trust and the authority as you go, because it's not like when they book a call with you, they are already sold, right? You probably still need to build that authority, build that trust, co-build with them. I mean, we are fans of a whiteboard session. And if you find a way to make that smoothly without too much friction, you close deals.
I think so. And I think as well, it's, it's about how you, I think, demonstrate your own ways of working as well, and just give as much as you can, be generous, give as much as you can to your clients at the right times. And also just other things that have really worked for me. I run a charity where I live, and we're focused on making waste-free living the norm. And that has provided a really useful talking point for people, because I've got proof then. This isn't me sort of sat here saying, oh, I really believe in business as a force for good and you should use your business to do all of these wonderful things, and I'm just sending my invoices every month. Like I really believe that every business can do something positive. So this is my pursuit of how can I change the community in which I live in, and focus on doing something positive too. So that's, and I think people quite enjoy hearing about that, the contributions, the challenges, the experiences of doing something like that, and how some of those insights can then be applied to the businesses that they're working in too. So there's that two-way piece and that kind of generosity piece as well.
Let me throw the second curveball of this interview, Victoria.
Okay.
What's your number one challenge right now? What's the one nut that you're trying to crack that, once you crack, you're going to take the whole thing to the next level? What would that be for you?
So I talked about it earlier with CEOs about them having to balance these competing priorities. And it is a really, really tough one that I just haven't. Some days I win and some days I don't. So as well as running the consultancy, I also, as I mentioned, run this charity. And then I also run a tech startup. We're all about helping to make sustainability easy for small and medium-sized businesses, and trying to balance all of these things together and do them all well is really, really difficult. Plus look after my family, and I'm really fearful that my daughter's going to walk in any moment. I apologize in advance if she does. It's 5:15 and school has finished. So balancing the kind of family piece and my own well-being, then doing stellar client work, and also delivering on my other organization, my charitable work as well, is some days really, really tough and grueling, but it's worth it if you can get all the things lined up and you have a good day. As long as the trains run to time, then we're all doing well. Oh, she nearly came in.
Would have been lovely. Victoria Page, ladies and gentlemen. Victoria, if people want to find out more about you, see what you do, where should they go?
That they can go to my LinkedIn is probably the best place. So linkedin.com/in/Tause, TAUSE. And there's links to all of my other sites through there. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
We'll put all the links in the description. For what I'm concerned, I can say that you've gained at least one new connection on LinkedIn out of this interview, Victoria. Me, we are soon going to be connected on LinkedIn, and we'll put all the links in the description, obviously. Thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.
How